The scalpel's cold kiss against my skin was the last thing I remembered before the world dissolved into a haze of beeps and morphine dreams. I woke up groggy, tubes snaking into my arm like accusatory fingers, and the first face I saw wasn't his. It was my own reflection in the sterile hospital mirror, pale and hollow-eyed. A stranger who just carved out a piece of himself for a man who might never wake up. "Alex," the nurse whispered, her voice cracking like thin ice. "Richard's crashing again. They need you to sign off on the transplant now, or it'll be too late." That moment hit me like a freight train barreling through the quiet corridors of Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan. The kind of collision that shatters illusions and leaves you bleeding truths you didn't know you were hiding. I'd flown across the country from LA on a red-eye, my heart pounding harder than the engines, because Richard, my Richard, the man who'd swept me off my feet in a whirlwind of rooftop cocktails and whispered confessions, had collapsed at his Upper East Side penthouse, his body finally betraying the empire he'd built. Kidney failure, the doctors said, stage 5, no time for the donor list. And me? I was a match. A goddamn perfect match. Like fate had been scripting this punchline all along. But as I lay there, the consent form trembling in my foredamp hand, the whispers from the hallway clawed their way in. "Sugar baby," they hissed, Richard's sister Evelyn's voice slicing through the door like a tabloid headline. "That pretty little opportunist thinks he can play hero now? After leeching off Daddy for 3 years?" I wanted to scream that it wasn't about the money, the leased Tesla, the comped weekends in the Hamptons, but about the way Richard's hand had cupped my cheek in the rain-soaked alley behind that West Village bar. His eyes saying what his silver fox charm never could. "You're my miracle, Alex. Don't let them break you." Instead, I signed, the pen scratching like a betrayal, and closed my eyes as they wheeled me into the oar. For better or worse, a piece of me was about to become his lifeline or his noose. The surgery blurred into a fog of fluorescent lights and phantom pains. But when I surfaced 2 days later in recovery, the world had tilted on its axis. My side throbbed like a fresh bruise, a dull roar under the fentanyl drip, but the real ache bloomed in my chest when the doctor pulled back the curtain. "It took," he said, his Brooklyn accent thick with reluctant awe. "Richard's vitals are stabilizing. You saved him, kid. Saved him." The words echoed like a hollow victory, because in the sterile symphony of monitors, I heard the undercurrent. But at what cost? Nurses bustled in with Jell-O cups and pitying smiles, but Evelyn lingered in the doorway like a storm cloud, her pearls clutched like rosary beads, lips pursed in that wasp disdain she'd perfected over decades of blue blood brunches. "Alexander," she said, the name dripping like acid. Never Alex. Always the full formality to remind me I didn't belong. She was mid-40s, sharp as a stiletto in her Chanel sheath, hair swept into a chignon that screamed old money. "This gesture of yours. This noble, I suppose. But let's be clear, Richard's will is ironclad. Whatever fantasies you've spun in that gold-digging head of yours, they end here." I laughed, a weak, wheezing thing that pulled at my stitches, because what else could I do? Fantasies? If only she knew the nights we'd spent tangled in Egyptian cotton sheets. Not in lust, but in quiet confessions. Richard admitting how his boardroom bravado masked a lifetime of closeted terror. Me spilling the wreckage of my foster kid past, bouncing from group homes in the valley to dead-end gigs waiting tables in WeHo. We'd built something real amid the caviar and critiques, or so I'd thought. Discharged after a week of bedpans and bad coffee, I shuffled back to Richard's penthouse on Fifth Avenue, the doorman nodding sympathetically, as if he'd overheard the family drama unfolding in hushed tones. The place smelled of his cologne. Sandalwood and citrus, a scent that once wrapped around me like a promise. And I collapsed onto the leather sectional, staring at the skyline twinkling like distant judgments. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Voicemails from my best friend Mia back in LA, her voice a lifeline of sarcasm and support. "Dude, you gave away an organ? For him? After the shit his fam pulled at Thanksgiving." "Yeah, Thanksgiving. The one where Evelyn had accidentally outed me to the extended clan over turkey. Her toast laced with barbs about Richard's midlife indiscretions. I'd smiled through it, fork scraping china. Because love, I told myself, was worth the side eye. Richard came home 3 weeks post-op, a shadow of the man who'd helicoptered us to Aspen for New Year's, his frame gaunt under the cashmere sweater I'd picked out. He moved like a convalescent king, leaning on a cane carved from teak, but his eyes, those piercing blue eyes that had first locked onto mine across a crowded fundraiser for the Ollie Forney Center, lit up when he saw me. "Alex," he breathed, pulling me into an embrace that ignored the doctor's warnings about strain. We didn't kiss. Not yet, not with the fragility hanging between us, but his hand found mine, fingers interlacing like roots seeking soil. "You idiot. My beautiful, reckless idiot. What if it hadn't worked?" We settled into a fragile rhythm. Him on the couch with Bloomberg droning in the background. Me brewing bone broth in the kitchen that could double as a gallery space. The tabloids had caught wind. Tycoon's toy boy turns donor. Love or leverage? And paparazzi loitered like stray cats outside the lobby. Their flashes a nightly light show. Evelyn ramped up her siege, daily calls laced with legalese. The family's consulting counsel, Richard. This boy's influence. It's toxic. Toxic. The word festered because deep down I wondered if she was right. Was I poison? A 28-year-old barista-turned-kept man? My art school dreams deferred for his stability? Or was I the antidote to his loneliness? The one who'd coaxed him out of the closet at 52? After decades of Bachelor headlines and loveless mergers? One crisp October evening, as leaves skittered like confetti down Park Avenue, Richard called me to his study, a mahogany sanctum lined with first editions and faded photos of a younger him shaking hands with senators. He was in his armchair, a crystal tumbler of scotch untouched on the side table. His face etched with lines that hadn't been there before. "Sit," he said, voice gravelly from disuse. I perched on the ottoman, heart thudding like a bass line in a dimly lit club. "I've been thinking about us, about tomorrow." Tomorrow. The word hung heavy, because tomorrow meant his board meeting, the one where he'd reclaim his CEO throne at Sterling Ventures, and Evelyn's whispers would echo in every corner office. He reached into his desk drawer, pulling out a velvet box that gleamed like forbidden fruit. Inside, not a ring, no, Richard wasn't one for cliches, but a key, antique brass, attached to a fob engraved with coordinates. 40.7589 degrees north, 73.9851 degrees west. Central Park, the spot under the Bethesda fountain where we'd had our first real date, rain pattering on our umbrellas as he admitted, "I've never felt this alive, Alex. Not in 60 years. What's this?" I whispered, thumb tracing the metal. He smiled, faint but fierce. "A promise. The brownstone in Brooklyn, it's yours. Free and clear. No strings, no sugar bullshit. Build your life there. Paint your canvases. Love whoever you damn well please. I want you whole, even if it's without me." The weight of it crushed me, tears blurring the lamplight into halos. Whole. As if I'd ever been anything but fractured. Shuttled between indifferent guardians after Mom OD'd when I was 12, Dad long gone to some ghost in Reno. Richard had seen the cracks, filled them with gallery openings and therapy sessions paid in cash. But this was freedom, a key to a door I'd never dared knock on. "Why now?" I choked out, because fear was a live wire between us. He leaned forward, hand on my knee. "Because loving you taught me redemption isn't about boardrooms or billions. It's about giving back what you stole from the world, your light, Alex. Don't let my family dim it." But families like his don't yield quietly. Evelyn struck the next morning, bursting into the penthouse like a hurricane in Hermes, her lawyer in tow. A slick weasel named Hargrove with cufflinks that screamed Ivy League. Richard was still Abed, weakened by a follow-up dialysis session. So it was me in the foyer, bathrobe askew, facing the Inquisition. "Sign this." Hargrove thrust a folder, non-disclosure agreement thick as a Bible. "Renounce any claims to Richard's estate, and we'll generously cover your medical bills. Walk away clean, boy." Boy. The diminutive burned, reducing 3 years of stolen kisses and shared sunrises to a transaction. I snatched the papers, scanning the legalese that painted me as the villain. Opportunistic companion, undue influence. Evelyn hovered, her perfume cloying as regret. "He's vulnerable, Alexander. Predators like you prey on that. Spare us the drama. Take the check and vanish to whatever trailer park you crawled from. Trailer park. The lie stung, conjuring memories of chain-link fences and microwave dinners. But I straightened, the key heavy in my pocket like an anchor. Predator. I echoed, voice steady for the first time. I gave him my kidney, Evelyn. Not for a payout, but because I love him. You? You'd trade your brother for a clean ledger. She faltered, just a flicker. Regret? Fear. Before the mask snapped back. Love? Please. You're a phase. A scandal waiting to erupt. Richard's legacy is sterling blood. Not some. Dalliance. Dalliance. The word echoed as they stormed out, Hargrove muttering about injunctions, but it ignited something feral in me. I marched to Richard's room, finding him propped on pillows, for Pole a silent sentinel. They're coming for you, I said, collapsing beside him, the bed dipping under our shared weight. He pulled me close, breath warm against my temple. Let them. I've already rewritten the will. You're the heir, Alex, not to the money but to the foundation. The one for queer youth, the kids like you were. It's yours to run, to make mean something. The revelation landed like a thunderclap, because Richard's fortune wasn't just yachts and vineyards. It was the Richard Hale Foundation, seeded with millions to shelter LGBTQ runaways, fund scholarships, fight the very invisibility that had choked him for decades. To inherit that, it was more than cash, it was absolution, a chance to turn my scars into scaffolding for others. But as his hand tightened on mine, I saw the shadow in his eyes, the unspoken. This might be goodbye. Tests had shown complications, a rejection brewing like storm clouds, and the doctor's optimism rang hollow. Winter clamped down on the city like a vice, snow muffling the horns and heartbeats of Manhattan. We clung to rituals. The ferry rides to Staten Island for hot cocoa under the stars, where he'd trace constellations on my palm and murmur, Orion's belt, like yours after that gym session, irresistible. Laughter came easier then, a defiant bubble against the chill, but Evelyn's warpath escalated. Subpoenas arrived like poisoned valentines, depositions demanding I recount every gift as extortion. Mia flew in for Christmas, her pixie cut dusted with flurries, crashing on the guest room futon with tales of LA starlets and, "You deserve better than this East Coast soap opera, babe." One night, as Bing Crosby crooned from the speakers and fairy lights twinkled off the tree we decorated with ornaments from his travels, a tiny rainbow flag from Provincetown, a silver star from our first pride, Richard pulled me onto the rug by the fire. The flames danced shadows across his face, hollowing cheeks that had once dimpled with mischief. "Promise me," he said, voice a rasp. "If I don't make it, you'll fight. Not for me, for them. The boys like us, hiding in plain sight." I nodded, throat tight, because the if had become when. Dialysis failing, fevers spiking like accusations. The betrayal came swift as a blade on New Year's Eve, the city exploding in confetti and cheers while we watched from the balcony, wrapped in a shared blanket. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. A link to TMZ, Sterling Scion's secret, sugar baby blackmail plot exposed, photos I'd taken, candid shots of Richard laughing in Central Park, notes from our early days scribbled on napkins, twisted into evidence of coercion. Evelyn's doing her final gambit to paint me as the monster. Rage boiled, hot and righteous, and I hurled the phone into the snow below, shards of glass glittering like fallen stars. Richard found me there, trembling, and pulled me inside without a word, leading me to the study. "It's done," he said, sliding an envelope across the desk. Manila, sealed with wax, my name in his looping script. "Open it later. For now, know this, you're no sugar baby. You're my salvation." We made love that night, not with the fire of youth but the tenderness of time running out. Slow kisses tasting of salt and scotch, bodies aligning like puzzle pieces worn smooth. Dawn broke gray and unforgiving, and by noon, he was rushed back to the ICU, sepsis clawing at his borrowed time. The waiting room became my vigil, vinyl chairs and vending machine coffee a blur of days. Evelyn arrived in stages, first accusatory glares, then reluctant truces over lukewarm lattes, her facade cracking when the priest murmured last rites. He always was the dreamer, she confessed one midnight, mascara streaking like war paint. Blamed myself for pushing him into that merger with Caroline. Fake smiles, fake life. You gave him truth. Truth. The word bridged us, fragile as a handshake, and for the first time, I saw her not as enemy but exile, a sister loving from afar. Richard slipped away at 4:17 a.m. on a Tuesday in February, the monitors flatlining like a sigh released. I held his hand till the end, the key from months ago now a talisman around my neck, its coordinates a map to memories. The funeral was a spectacle. St. Patrick's Cathedral thronged with suits and survivors, eulogies lauding his visionary philanthropy, while sidestepping the man who danced with me at underground balls in Chelsea. Evelyn read the will in a lawyer's office overlooking Bryant Park, cherry blossoms mocking the tension with pink defiance. The room fell silent as Hargrove cleared his throat. To Evelyn Hale, the Park Avenue Co-op and 20% of Sterling shares. Nods, murmurs. To the Richard Hale Foundation, the bulk of liquid assets, under the directorship of Alexander Rivera. Gasps rippled, Evelyn's hand flying to her mouth, but she didn't protest. More than anyone expected. Indeed, not billions in cash, but power. A $200 million war chest to house the homeless, counsel the closeted, amplify voices silenced by fear. Heir to more than money, a legacy of love weaponized for good. In the aftermath, the lawsuits crumbled like ash. Evelyn, perhaps redeemed, withdrew her claims with a quiet apology over brunch at Sarabeth's. He chose you, she said, passing the scones. We should have seen it sooner. I moved into the Brooklyn brownstone, its walls blank canvases begging for color, and dove into the foundation's helm. Opening shelters in the Bronx, scholarships for trans kids in Queens, pride events that drew thousands under rainbow arches strung with hope. Months blurred into spring, the city thawing like a heart mended. Mia visited, her laughter echoing off exposed brick as we painted the living room cerulean blue. For his eyes, I said, brush dripping. And then, at a foundation gala in the village, amid jazz and jazz hands, I met Theo, 32. A social worker with a dimpled grin and a habit of quoting Auden. Our first dance was tentative, his hand warm on my waist. No keys or kidneys between us, just possibility. Richard's ghost lingered in sunsets over the East River, a whisper urging live whole, but I was learning. The sugar baby label faded to footnote, replaced by headlines of impact. Ex-heir turns philanthropy powerhouse. Betrayal had forged me, donation defined me, but inheritance? That was the real gift. Not the fortune, but the freedom to love without ledger. In America's messy mosaic of dreams deferred and reclaimed, I stood taller, kidney scar a badge of battles won. And as Theo kissed me under the Brooklyn Bridge lights, fireflies dancing like confetti from another life, I knew. Some miracles aren't borrowed. They're built one brave beat at a time. The brownstone's creaks became my lullaby that first summer. Wooden floors groaning underfoot like old friends sharing secrets. I'd wake to sunlight slanting through stained glass windows. Panes Richard had installed decades ago, fragments of cobalt and crimson casting rainbows on the duvet. Theo's scent lingered from the night before, coffee and clean soap, a contrast to the sandalwood ghosts I chased away with sage bundles and spiteful open windows. You're nesting, he'd tease over breakfast, flipping pancakes in the sun-drenched kitchen. His laugh a melody that drowned out the echo of Evelyn's barbs. Nesting. The word felt foreign, like trying on a suit tailored for someone braver, but damn if it didn't fit. Running the foundation was a beast with 1,000 heads. Board meetings in glass towers where I'd once been the invisible +1. Now commanding the table with proposals for mobile clinics in Harlem. We're not just handing out sandwiches, I'd say, voice steady as the projections flickered on the screen. We're building bridges, literal ones, with job training for queer vets. Skeptical glances softened to nods, and by July, we'd secured a grant from the Ford Foundation. Headlines in the Times praising the kidney donor's quiet revolution. Quiet. If only they knew the roar inside. The way doubt clawed at me during late-night audits. Whispering imposter. They'll see through you. Theo saw, though, not the cracks, but the gold in them, like that Japanese art Mia obsessed over. We met properly at the gala. Him in a slim-fit blazer that hugged his runner's build, volunteering as MC with a wit sharp as a gin martini. Ladies, gentlemen, and fabulous NBs, he'd quipped, mic in hand. Tonight we celebrate not survival, but thriving, like Alex here, who turned a personal hell into a powerhouse of help. The crowd chuckled, but his eyes held mine across the room. A spark that said, I see you, all of you. Later, under the string lights strung like stars, he'd asked for my number with a shy grin. For foundation stuff, or, coffee, whichever saves the world first. Our first date was low stakes. Bryant Park picnic with falafel wraps and a dog-eared copy of Giovanni's Room, which he read aloud in a voice like aged bourbon, Baldwin's words weaving through the hum of tourists. You ever feel like you're always apologizing for existing? He asked, feeding me a grape, juice bursting sweet on my tongue. I nodded, confessing the Foster shuffle. Bounced like a bad check, 6 homes by 16, each with its own brand of fix the gay kid therapy. His hand found mine, thumb circling knuckles. My mom's a preacher in Savannah. Came out at 20, got the fire and brimstone sermon on loop. But look at us. Still here, still hungry. Hunger. It defined us, that shared ache for connection unmarred by transaction. With Richard, love had been a ledger. Balances of gratitude and gifts, his generosity a shield against my insecurities. Theo? He was equations without numbers, showing up with takeout after a brutal deposition, rubbing my feet while I vented about Hargrove's lingering appeals. That weasel tried to subpoena my emails today. I'd rant, wine sloshing in the glass, as if dick pics were my dowry. Theo's laugh boomed, pulling me onto his lap. Let him dig. They'll find sonnets, not scandals. But scandals have a way of resurfacing like oil slicks on calm waters. August brought a heat wave that turned the city into a skillet, tempers flaring alongside the asphalt. I was at a site visit in the South Bronx. Our new drop-in center, walls fresh with murals by local queer artists. When my phone buzzed with Mia's ringtone, a frantic trill cutting through the drill's whine. Babe, turn on CNN. Evelyn's spilling tea, and it's piping hot. Heart slamming, I ducked into the shade of a scaffold, screen blooming with her press conference. Poised at a podium emblazoned with sterling ventures, pearls gleaming like armor. Richard was a visionary, she intoned, cameras flashing like vultures. But in his final days, he was coerced, manipulated by those closest to him, cut to B-roll. Pap shots of me entering the hospital, arm in sling, then grainy stills from Richard's phone. Our texts, innocuous heart emojis twisted into extortionate demands. My stomach plummeted. Coerced? The word she'd hurled at me months ago, now public poison. Reporters clamored. Ms. Hale, are you contesting the will? Her pause was theatrical, eyes glistening. For justice, yes. My brother's legacy deserves protectors, not predators. Predators. Again. The slur landed like a sucker punch, echoing the foster caseworker's dismissal when I came out at 15. Boy like you? Trouble waiting. I hung up on Mia mid-rant, dialing Evelyn's number with shaking fingers. Voicemail, of course, her tone crisp. In light of recent revelations, contact my attorney. Revelations? Rage propelled me to the subway, the rattle of tracks mirroring my pulse, emerging onto Fifth Avenue slick with sweat and fury. The penthouse loomed, a monolith of memories, and I stormed the lobby, doorman averting his eyes. Upstairs, the place was a tomb. Dust motes dancing in sunbeams, Richard's Scotch decanter still half full on the bar cart. I rifled drawers, heart pounding, until I found it. The manila envelope, tucked in the safe behind his Hemingway collection. My hands trembled as I broke the seal, unfolding pages yellowed like old love letters. Not a codicil, but a letter. His script, looping and sure. Dearest Alex, if you're reading this, I've cashed out my chips. No, I chose you not from weakness, but strength, the kind you ignited in me. Evelyn's fire is fear, born of losing Dad young. marrying into money that bought silence. Forgive her, as I forgave my own ghosts. The foundation is your forge. Hammer it true, and love again wildly without apology. Yours eternally are. Tears blurred the ink, but clarity sharpened beneath. This was no betrayal, but a baton passed. I pocketed the letter, steeling for war. The press conference fallout hit like a monsoon. Donors wavering, board members emailing cautious concern. Even Theo's texts shifting to tentative check-ins. You okay? Saw the news. Here if you need. I needed, alright, a reckoning. Calling an emergency board meeting, I strode into the conference room like a man reborn, projector humming as I laid out the timeline. Evelyn's history of control, Richard's lucid amendments witnessed by 3 notaries, my donation logs proving selfless intent. Predator, I challenged, voice echoing off the glass walls. I lost an organ, not my morals. Evelyn's contest isn't justice. It's jealousy. A sister grasping at shadows because her brother found light in the margins. Murmurs swelled to applause. Resolutions passing like thunder. By dusk, we'd issued a statement. The Richard Hale Foundation stands firm. Legacy is not litigated. It's lived. The media pivoted. Sugar Baby strikes back. Hard over heist. And Evelyn's lawyer called retreat. A settlement offer buried in boilerplate. Theo waited outside, leaning against his beat-up Prius, arms crossed but eyes soft. Heard you slayed. I collapsed against him, the city's hum fading to our breaths sinking. Slayed and stayed. Wanna grab falafel? World-saving kind. His kiss was answer enough, fierce and forgiving, pulling me into the dusk where Brooklyn beckoned home. Fall painted the borough in fire. Ginkgo leaves carpeting sidewalks like confetti from a parade unseen. The foundation thrived, our first cohort of scholarship kids arriving wide-eyed for orientation. A trans teen from Staten Island with sketches that screamed Basquiat. A non-binary poet from the projects whose verses gut-punched with grace. Mentoring them felt like tending embers, watching flickers bloom to blaze. Mr. Rivera? The poet asked one afternoon, notebook clutched like a shield. How'd you know it was worth the fight? I paused, Richard's letter crinkling in my pocket. Because some fights aren't for you, they're for the kid you were, the one who needed saving. Theo wove deeper into that tapestry, our lives threading like warp and weft. Weekends at Coney Island, cotton candy sticking to fingers as we rode the cyclone, screams mingling with sea spray. Promise me no more organ auctions, he joked once, wind whipping his hair. But his grip tightened, vulnerability peeking through the banter. His own scars surfaced in fragments. Exes who'd weaponized his queerness against church family ties. A brother who ghosted after the coming-out call. You're the first who doesn't make me feel like a cautionary tale, he admitted over cider at a Bushwick bar. Fairy lights twinkling like approval. Yet doubt's shadow lingered. Evelyn's echo a low hum. A November gale rattled the brownstone's panes when she appeared unannounced. Coat dusted with sleet, face gaunt under the porch light. May I? She asked, voice small, and against every instinct, I stepped aside. We settled in the parlor, chamomile steaming between us, the air thick with unsaid elegies. I was wrong, she began, fingers twisting her ring. A family heirloom, ironic now. Richard told me, in the end, about the letter, about choosing you. Her eyes, so like his, brimmed. I thought protecting his name meant erasing complications. But you're the best part of his story. Complications. The word softened in her mouth, no longer venom. We talked till midnight. Her loveless marriage to a hedge fund drone. The abortion she'd hidden at 20 to preserve the Hale facade. Richard's quiet interventions over the years. He loved you fiercely, she said, rising to leave. And I want to help. With the foundation. If you'll have me. Have her? The prodigal sister, trading broadsword for olive branch. I nodded, throat tight. Start with the gala. MC duties. Redemption's arc bent slow. But it bent. Holiday lights strung the streets as we prepped for the winter fundraiser. Evelyn's poise channeling into pitches that wooed donors like old flames. Theo raised an eyebrow over eggnog. From foe to family? You're a wizard, Rivera. Family. The words settled warm. No longer a foster phantom but a chosen constellation. New Year's dawned crisp. The gala a whirlwind of velvet ropes and violin swells in a Soho loft. Theo and I danced between guests, his hand at my low back a steady pulse. Evelyn toasted midway, glass raised. To Richard. Not the tycoon, but the man who taught us love defies ledgers. Cheers erupted, and in that swell, I felt him. A brush of sandalwood on the breeze, approval from afar. Later, fireworks bloomed over the harbor, Theo's arms around me on the fire escape. Here's to inheritances, he murmured, lips grazing my ear. The kind that multiply. I turned, kissing him deep, the city's heartbeat syncing with ours. More than anyone expected. Yes, that was the miracle. Not the kidney, not the keys, but the quiet revolution of hearts handed over, whole and unafraid. Spring erupted in Brooklyn like a long-held breath. Cherry blossoms carpeting the brownstone stoop in pink petals that stuck to our shoes like confetti from a wedding uninvited. Theo and I had made it official, not with fanfare, but a quiet ceremony at City Hall. Rings simple tungsten bands engraved with coordinates. Our first kiss under the bridge. Partners, he'd said, slipping mine on, voice husky with the weight of it. Partners. The term grounded me, tethering the foundation's frenzy to something personal. A harbor amid the storm of expansions. New outposts in Philly, partnerships with Lambda Legal. But expansion bred exposure, and with it, the ghosts I'd thought exorcised. A profile in Out magazine hit stands in April, glossy pages capturing me against the brownstone's ivy wall. From Kept to Kingmaker, Alex Rivera's organ of change. The byline glowed, empowering, triumphant, but buried in the sidebar, a quote from an anonymous family insider. He played the long game, all right? Donated to dominate. Evelyn? No, her thaw had held. She'd co-hosted a shelter ribbon-cutting last month, scissors snipping silk with a smile that reached her eyes. This was Hargrove's venom, or some disgruntled ex-boarder sniffing for scraps. The piece went viral, shares spiking like a fever, and by week's end, my inbox overflowed, hate mail laced with slurs, faggot fraud, kidney whore, mingling with fan letters from kids in flyover states. Their words raw hope. You made me believe I could be more than my town's punchline. I curated the latter into a foundation newsletter. But the vitriol burrowed, nights spent staring at the ceiling while Theo slept. His snores a gentle saw against my whirl. You're spiraling, he said one rainy Saturday, catching me at the kitchen table with Richard's letter unfurled, coffee gone cold. Rain lashed the panes, drumming a dirge. This town's got opinions, babe. Doesn't make 'em gospel. I traced the script, faded now from folds. It's not the town. It's me wondering if they're right. Was I ever more than the pretty distraction? He knelt, hands on my thighs, gaze steady as Brooklyn bedrock. You were his North Star. And mine? You're the whole damn sky. Sky. The metaphor lifted, if only a fraction, and we escaped to the roof. Our illegal garden patch, tomatoes staking defiant against the wet. He pulled me down onto the damp blanket, kisses turning fervent, hands mapping scars both seen and felt. Let me remind you, he whispered, breath hot against my neck, and for a while, the world narrowed to us. Skin on skin, no histories haunting, just presence pure as spring thaw. Evelyn's olive branch bore fruit that May, her invitation to the Hale family estate in the Hamptons. A sprawling shingle-style manse on Georgica Pond, waves lapping like reluctant applause. Easter brunch, she'd emailed. Emoji of a lamb absurdly cheerful. No lawyers. Promise. Theo squeezed my hand on the jitney ride out, his knee bouncing. Think she'll have the silver out, or just the shackles? I laughed, nerves fizzing like champagne. Shackles? The old me would have bolted, but this Alex, this heir to more, packed a weekend bag with resolve. The estate unfolded like a Gatsby fever dream. Manicured lawns rolling to dunes, a pool glinting turquoise under magnolias. Evelyn greeted us on the veranda, linen dress billowing, a far cry from her courtroom armor. Alexander, Theo. Hugs, awkward but earnest, and then the clan. Cousins in polos, an aunt with a poodle named Poochie, all eyeing me like a relic unearthed. Brunch sprawled, deviled eggs and hollandaise, silver gleaming on damask. As stories flowed, Richard's anecdotes retold without the asterisks. His Yale pranks, the time he skinny-dipped in the pond at dawn. Post-meal, Evelyn pulled me aside to the library, bookshelves groaning with leather spines. "I owe you this," she said, handing over a slim volume. Richard's journal, circa 2019, the year we met. Pages crackled as I opened to a marked passage. Tonight, at the fundraiser, I saw him, dark curls, laugh like summer thunder. 52 and feeling 16. God, if only I were brave. My chest tightened, tears pricking. "He carried you here long before the kidney," she murmured. "I was blind, Alex. Protecting ghosts instead of family." Family. The word sealed something, and by sunset, Theo and I walked the beach, toes sinking in cool sand, her words a tailwind. "See? Not all hails bite." He nudged me, but his eyes held questions. Our future, unspoken. Back in the city, we dove into planning. A foundation retreat in the Catskills, cabins and campfires for our ments. Queer summer camp for grown-ass adults, Theo joked, packing Esmore's kits. But beneath a current-pulled commitment's undertow, the fear of loving too hard, losing again. June's heat baked the streets, pride flags snapping like banners of battle won. The parade was a riot of color. Drag queens on floats, leathermen locking arms, me marching with foundation banners. Inherit the rainbow. Theo hoisted a kid on his shoulders. The boys sign reading thanks. "Alex, got my GED." Joy surged, electric, but midway down Fifth, a counter-protest loomed, signs spewing Sodom's fall, bullhorns blaring scripture. A bottle sailed, shattering near my feet. Shards glittered like judgments. Theo yanked me back, pulse racing. "Assholes." He spat, but I froze, echoes of Foster brawls crashing in. Fists for being that fag kid. The march dissolved into after-parties. But I bailed, retreating to the brownstone with Theo's concerned texts lighting my phone. Alone, I cracked Richard's journal, seeking solace in ink. "Fear is the thief, Alex. Steal it back. Steal it back." By dawn, I texted the board. Proposal, anti-hate initiative. Legal aid for parade victims, ally training for cops. Momentum built, donors doubling down, Evelyn wiring seed money with a note. For the fight he started. Theo found me at noon, bagels in hand, journal splayed. Rough night. He slid beside me, shoulder to shoulder. The bottle took me back. Confession spilled. Nights huddled in group home bathrooms. Prayers bartered for peace. He listened, no fixes, just presence. "You're not that kid anymore. You're the guy who turns bottles into blueprints." Blueprints. Yes, and that night, over rooftop wine, we sketched ours. Adoptions maybe. A dog named Orion travels to Savannah for his mom's uneasy truce. July 4th crackled with fireworks over the East River. But my blaze was internal, closing the anti-hate fund with a gala that packed Lincoln Center. Evelyn emceed, her toast a masterclass in grace. "To Richard's rebels like my brother and his Alex, may we all inherit their fire." Applause thundered, Theo's hand in mine under the table. A squeeze saying we're building something unbreakable. Yet August whispered warnings. A donor pulling out amid optics concerns from the out piece. Hargrove resurfaced, anonymous tip to the post. "Will contest looms anew, donor's dark past?" Dark past. Foster records sealed but leaked, painting my youth as delinquent dalliances. Calls flooded. Reporters probing, ments questioning. "Is it true, Mr. Rivera?" A scholarship kid texted, emoji of a broken heart. Theo paced the kitchen, phone to ear with his lawyer buddy. "Fight it. Truth's your armor." Armor frayed that week, a deposition dragging me to Hargrove's midtown lair. Polished oak, air thick with cigar residue. "Sign the retraction," he leered, folder of redacted files splayed. "Admit the influence." And we bury this influence. The lie curdled. Richard's voice in my head. Don't let them dim you. I stood, voice ice. Bury your career, Hargrove. See you in court. The lawsuit filed by week's end. Foundation rallying, petitions, press pushes. Evelyn testified first, her poise shattering the room. My brother chose Alex freely. I chose silence too long. No more. Her words trended, hail truth spiking, and by Labor Day, Hargrove folded, settlement sealed with NDA and a donation to our fund. Ironic justice. Theo and I celebrated on the roof, stars pricking the smog, champagne bubbling. To dimming no one, he toasted, clinking glasses. His kiss deepened, promise-laden, and as autumn leaves hinted at gold, I knew. Inheritance wasn't endpoint, but ever unfolding. Love's legacy, layered and luminous. Autumn's palette turned Brooklyn into a canvas I'd once dreamed of painting. Oaks ablaze in russet and gold, air crisp with the scent of wood smoke and possibility. The Hargrove settlement lingered like a bruise fading to yellow, a reminder that battles leave marks but don't define the map. Theo and I leaned into the season's rhythm. Apple picking in the Hudson Valley, hayrides jolting laughter from us as we pelted each other with cider cores. You're terrible at this, he'd gasp, dodging a toss, his scarf unraveling like my defenses. Terrible? Maybe, but alive, fiercely, foolishly so. The Foundation's anti-hate initiative bloomed amid falling leaves, pilot programs rolling out in community centers from Crown Heights to Chelsea. I keynote at a symposium in D.C., standing before suits and survivors, voice steady. Hate isn't a headline. It's a hand raised in the dark. We light the way, one story at a time. Applause swelled, but backstage, a young activist cornered me. Mid-20s, buzz cut and tattoos, eyes fierce. You're the kidney guy, right? Donated for love, inherited the world. How do I start? The question echoed my own genesis, and over hotel coffee, I spilled. The alley kiss, Dior lights, Richard's letter like a compass. Back home, momentum mirrored personal tides. Theo broached forever over Thanksgiving turkey. Evelyn's table this year. A tentative truce expanded to include his family via Zoom. His mom's Bible-thumping softening to, bless you both. Move in? He asked later, dishes clattering in the sink, suds bubbling like champagne. Move in. The brownstone, once a solo sanctuary, yawned for company. His running shoes by the door, poetry books dog-earing the shelves. Yes, I said, pulling him close, water soaking our shirts. Yes to the mess. The mornings tangled in sheets smelling of him. December dusted the city in sugar, Foundation holiday drives packing pantries with toys and tamales. Mia jetted in, her LA glow clashing with the chill, crashing our couch with tales of a rom-com script, ripped from your soap opera life. Sugar baby to savior? Oscar bait. Babe. We laughed over hot toddies, but her eyes sharpened. Theo's solid. Don't bolt because it feels too good. Bolt. The instinct. Honed in transience. Prickled. Richard's loss a scar itching under joy. The itch manifested at the Winter Gala. Lincoln Center aglow with chandeliers like frozen fireworks. Evelyn and I co-chaired, her elegance syncing with my earnestness, raising records for emergency funds. Midway, a donor approached, silver-haired, familiar from Richard's circles, scotch in hand. Heard about the will, he slurred, breath boozy. Clever play, kid. Hale always had a soft spot for strays. Strays, the diminutive clawed, and I excused myself, fleeing to the balcony where snow swirled like confetti regrets. Theo found me, coat draped over my shoulders. Old money, old mouths. Shake it off. Shaking proved harder that night, driving home through flurries, silence thick as fog. Am I still? That to you. I blurted at a red light, dashboard glow hollowing his face. The guy with baggage, not the partner? He pulled over, hazard lights blinking like a heartbeat. Baggage? Alex, you're the carry-on I chose, essential, irreplaceable. His hand cupped my jaw, thumb tracing lip. Richard gave you wings. I'm just along for the flight. Wings. The image soared, And by home, we were airborne. Bedroom a whirlwind of whispers and warmth, reaffirming what words fumbled. New Year ushered resolutions and revelations. A pregnancy scare for one of our ments. A trans mom fleeing conversion camps. Her story fueling a legal blitz. I dove in, pro bono teams assembling like Avengers. Evelyn's contacts opening doors to senators. "You're unstoppable," she said over lunch at Le Bernardin. Oysters gleaming like pearls of pride. Unstoppable? Perhaps, but vulnerability visited in Valentine's Vespers. Theo planning a surprise getaway to Key West, conch shells and sunsets, but en route, turbulence tossed doubts. What if I crash again? The Keys breathed salt and serenity, hammocks swaying like cradles. We kayaked mangroves at dawn, egrets startling white against green, his paddles sinking with mine. "Tell me a secret," he prompted one twilight, toes in surf, horizon bleeding pink. Secrets. I confessed the journal's latest haunt. Richard's entry on fearing obsolescence. Will he wake one day and see the wrinkles, not the wonder? "I worry that with you," I admitted, waves lapping ankles. "That time will turn me into echo." Theo turned, water droplets beating his lashes. "Echo? Your symphony? Alex, layers, harmonies." Richard was verse 1. We're the chorus, building. Building. The word anchored. And that night, under mosquito netting, we composed, bodies a duet, love's libretto without end. Spring circled back, pride preparations pulsing like a second heartbeat. The parade swelled, our float a phoenix of rainbow panels painted by ments. Inherent joy, counter-protests loomed smaller, drowned by drums and defiance. Theo marched beside me, sign high, love's the only legacy. Evelyn joined, pearls swapped for a proud cis-T, her presence a quiet thunder. Post-march, block party bass thrummed, and in the crush, a kid approached. 16, eyeliner smudged, voice small. Saw your story, gave me guts to tell my dads. Dads, plural. My throat closed. Theo's arm around my waist steadied. Summer simmered with growth. Foundation breaking ground on a youth center in Bed-Stuy. Walls rising like resolve. Theo proposed expansion. Family therapy pods, his social work bleeding into our blueprint. Us against the world? I teased. Blueprints unrolled on the kitchen table. Or the world with us. Evenings blurred into bliss. Farmers markets, his hand basket heavy with heirlooms. My sketchpad capturing his profile against bodega neon. But September shadowed with echoes, a health scare, routine check flagging my remaining kidney, shadows on scans like omens. Precautionary, the doc assured, but nights I woke sweating, Richards or lights flashing. Theo held vigil, ice packs and insistence. You're not going anywhere. We've got plots to thicken. Plots. Yes, the center's opening gala, A-listers pledging fortunes, Evelyn's toast. To echoes turned anthems. October's chill nipped, leaves crunching under runs along the promenade. Hargrove's ghost resurfaced in a blog post, bitter bile from his memoirs. Self-published screed painting me parasite. Clicks climbed, but so did counters. Ment's vlogging rebuttals, the real air. Heart over hype. Mia orchestrated a podcast takedown. Her producer chops slicing truth from trash. November's gratitude bloomed at Evelyn's again. Table groaning with turkey and toasts. Theo's family in person this time. Mom's handshake firm. God's got plans. Her eyes kind. Post-feast. Richard's journal passed hand to hand. Pages turning like permissions granted. He'd be proud, Evelyn said, clinking my glass. Proud. The mantle settled lighter. Legacy less load. More light. December danced in with lights and launches. The youth center ribbon cut under snowflakes. Kids streaming in like dawn. Theo and I watched from the steps, his head on my shoulder. Our first chapter, he murmured. Chapter. Not end, but ellipsis, ... to be continued. Winter's grip loosened into January's tentative thaw. The brownstone's radiators hissing like satisfied sighs after the youth center's triumph. Open house overflowed. queer elders swapping stories with tweents, art installations pulsing with neon narratives, Theo facilitating icebreakers with his effortless charm. Circle up, he'd call, voice a beacon, and spill. What's one inheritance you're claiming today? Claims poured. Resilience from rejections, joy from the margins. Mine? Love's longevity, proven in the quiet mornings after, Theo's coffee brewing as I journaled. My own now, entries echoing Richard's but bolder, unburdened. The center became Nexus, a heartbeat in Bedstewie's bustle. After-school programs coding apps for ally alerts. Evenings hosting spoken-word slams where verses vented venom into verse. Evelyn dove deep, her Rolodex rivaling my resolve, securing a TED slot for a mentee poet whose words on foster flight went viral. From couch to crown, I claim my ground. Views hit millions, and with them, funding floods, anonymous checks with notes. Inspired by the Kidney King. The crown weighed whimsical now, less scepter than spark. Theo's work synced seamlessly, his agency partnering for trauma pods. Soundproof nooks with beanbags and binaural beats. Kids unspooling knots in safety. You're revolutionizing this, his boss emailed. CSING me. Revolution. Plural we. The we that woke tangled. His legs slung over mine. Dreams murmured half awake. Adopt? He floated one snowy Sunday. Pancakes sizzling. A rescue pup video paused on his phone. Adopt. The word widened horizons. Conjuring nurseries painted in pastels. Lullabies laced with lessons. Someday? I agreed, syrup sweet on lips. His kiss sealing the maybe into momentum. February's frost etched windows in filigree, but warmth welled within. A retrospective at the Brooklyn Museum, my canvases curated. Abstracts born of incision scars, swirls of crimson and cobalt evoking vital flows. Opening night thrummed. Evelyn in attendance, arm linked with a silver fox of her own. Post-Hail era, she winked. Theo hovered, pride beaming, introducing me as the artist who paints with his pulse. Pulse. Yes, the gallery's hush broken by gasps at donor's dawn. A triptych of her glow, Skyline Vigil, Brooklyn Rebirth. Sold to a collector with a note. For the foundation, pay it forward. March marched in with winds whipping willow branches. Pride planning percolating early. This year's theme, Inherited Fire, floats forged in the center's forge. Mentee welders shaping steel hearts aglow. Theo and I co-captained. Nights sketching over takeout. His marker tracing my arm. Here, a phoenix, rising from your scar. No longer secret, but story. Tattooed now in ink and intent. A lattice of lines blooming ink black under clinic lights. Theo holding my hand through the buzz. April's showers greened the roof garden. Tomatoes twisting tentative. Mia's visit overlapped Earth Day. Her script pitch greenlit. Sweet inheritance. A biopic blurring my lines with fiction. You'll consult, she insisted. Poolside at a rooftop bar, skyline sprawling. Consult. The role chafed, voyeur to my own valor, but Theo mediated. Do it your way. Truth, not tabloid. Auditions ensued, actors fumbling my foster cadence, but one kid nailed the alley scene. Rain-slick kiss, eyes alight. Cut? The director called, and I exhaled, ghosts glimpsed, then gone. May Bloom defiant, center's first cohort graduating. GEDs gripped like grails, caps tossed to cheers. Evelyn keynote, voice velvet. Richard built empires of stone. You, Alex, forge families of fire. Families. Hers expanded, a divorce filed, her silver fox solidifying to suitor. Hail women rebound, she quipped over mimosas. Rebound. My own rooted deeper. Theo's ring glinting as we volunteered at a shelter, sorting donations with dusty teens. One boy, echoes of me. Curls wild, eyes wary, muttered. Thanks for not forgetting us. Forgetting. No, the foundation's firewall against fade. June's solstice sun gilded the parade route. Rainbow rivers flowing from Harlem to Houston. Our float led, steel hearts pulsing LED, mentee DJ spinning anthems. Rise up into Born This Way. Counter voices drowned in decibels. A bottle lobbed but caught midair by security. Our training's triumph. Evelyn marched in heels. Theo hoisting the wary boy on shoulders. Me waving till arms ached. After party at the center. Congas and cornbread. Strangers swaying into kin. July's haze hummed with holidays. Independence Day barbecues on the roof. Foundation fam mingling with Theo's kin. His mom's potato salad a peace offering. Fireworks cracked overhead, but ours crackled quieter. A proposal under stars. Him on one knee with a ring box locket. Coordinates inside. All of me, for all of you, he said, voice velvet vulnerable. Yes tumbled out. Tears salting the yes. Evelyn toasting via video. To legacies linked. August baked ambition. A national summit in San Francisco. Foundation franchising to the Bay. Flights west stirred sediments. LA layover. Mia's set visit. Foster haunts half remembered. Your jet fuel now, she said. Clinking craft beers. Jet fuel. Back east. The center expanded. Annex for elders. Bingo nights bridging generations. Theo's pup arrived, Orion. A mutt with mismatched eyes. Chaos in fur. September schooled in subtlety. Back-to-school drives stocking shelves with STEM kits for queer coders. A scandal simmered. Rival nonprofit poaching staff. But we countered with culture. Mural festivals, walls whispering welcome home. October's ochre wove Halloween haunts. Center's bash a scream fest of drag and demons danced away. November's nook of thanks gathered us round. Evelyn's table epic. Toasts to trials turned tales. December danced finale. Center's solstice soiree under solstice stars. Lanterns lifting like prayers. Theo and I slow danced. Orion at our feet. Evelyn partnering a mentee. More than expected. I whispered to the night. Richard's echo affirming. Yes, love's infinite yield. Harvested in hearts handed free. Years folded like pages turned. The brownstone a hive of happenings. Adoptions actualized. A daughter with Theo's dimples and my curls. Her laughter lilting through rooms. The foundation franchised coast to coast. Evelyn CEO Emeritus. Her Fox a fixture at fundraisers. Mia's film premiered. Hearts unbidden. Oscar whispers swirling. Me in the audience. Hand in Theo's. Pride not possession. And in quiet codas. Richard's journal on the shelf. A talisman touched. You were my more. More. The inheritance unending. Kidney's gift. Betrayal's forge. Love's loom weaving us whole. In America's ardent anthem, we sang on. Dramatic. Devoted. Defiantly ours.